I came here to save you.
The fortress is taken.
It is over.
Do not cite the deep magic to me, witch. I was there when it was written.
You're my only hope.
We shall fight on the beaches.
There will be days when we lose faith.
We band of brothers.
But take heart. Look around. You're not in this fight alone.
I bid you stand! Men of the West!
Okay, there we go.
Oh, okay, there we go. Boy, I need to really seriously rethink giving Gary so much shit.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Welcome everybody to our podcast. This is King's Advisors. My name's Dan. I'm joined with my partner, Caleb.
Howdy.
Caleb, you want to introduce yourself? All right. There's a howdy from Caleb. This is a podcast where we're going to discuss everything from entertainment to pop culture to really just the happenings and going on in the internet world. Just stuff we find interesting for the most part. A lot of entertainment that's been going on that's just been god awful. Some reviews, some critiques, some video game streams. And I think that's kind of one of the places where you'll find some uniqueness in us is that we are two barred attorneys. So we're just two people who think that this whole thing has got to eventually come to a stopping point somewhere, and we kind of want to be there with popcorn along the way. And with that, I'll turn it over to Caleb if you want to say a few words, and then we can get
over to So my name's Caleb. So as you'll see from both our YouTube page and our Twitter account, Dan and I both. We don't claim any expertise. We're two jacks of all trades, masters of none. We're, like Dan said, we're both very tired of seeing D+ entertainment come out of C- studios. Studios like obviously Amazon, who were handed quite literally probably the easiest thing they could have ever done, that any studio would just beg and dream over, and just completely bombed on the Rings of Power. I mean,
I think that's kind of why we're here. I mean, not even to jump right into it. And we're two Tolkien fans. We're big nerds. We enjoy our subjects very much, and we've, for some, as some could attest to, we've put a lot of our nerddom on hold because of going to law school and studying for the bar and finishing up with college, that it kind of slips away from you, and you always think there's going to be time for it, and you turn around and some jerk has ruined it, and you're like, wait, what the heck? I just wanted to see a cool story about the Second Age. You said it was going to be a cool story about the SecondAge.
Yeah, no,
where's Celeborn?
Yeah, I agree. I'm still looking.
I can't.
I enjoyed those things that I think. I want to say it was Yellow Flash that had the videos for Celeborn is missing from like the 90s and the 80s where they would flash up in commercials.
Yes, that is so funny.
Yeah, I mean that's incredibly clever. And that's the kind of thing, you've got YouTubers. You saw this on FNT a lot over the past couple of weeks when you'd have Shad, who is obviously a professional writer. He's written Shadow of the Conquest. I can't wait to Shadow of the Conqueror, not Conquest. I can't wait to get my copy, which should be coming in hopefully the next couple of weeks. But he's a professional writer, but you've got people like Gary said on his Nooner yesterday how he failed at being a copybook writer.
Yeah,
but you've got these guys
is a strong word. I mean, like that's how are you ever going to start? You know what I mean? Like
true. I agree.
Failed being a podcaster yet. It just might put it down at some points and pick it back up. I don't know.
Yeah, but you've got these two guys who would sit there and on Friday nights when they were going over the show, they would just kind of throw out ideas that were heads and shoulders better than what the people getting paid millions of dollars were producing. I mean, Amazon for I think it was like 2 years kept saying, "Hey, we spent $1 billion on this. It's going to be the greatest thing ever."
Yeah,
And then
I
about a
heard recently. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and about a week before the show came out, they were like, "Just so y'all know, it's actually like 750."
I was just gonna say that. Get out of my head. Yeah, I was just getting. That's why I was almost interrupted you because.
And
yeah,
they
it's exactly what. And then they immediately started backtracking it, and it was just an
oh yeah.
absolute-
And then just before that, or sorry, just after that, I think it was probably right around the third or fourth episode, we actually find out that the $250 million for the rights number was actually Netflix's bid, and that Amazon actually paid, and I believe this is a quote, significantly less. So here's
exactly
my question.
Also.
Yeah, my question for that would be, first off, Tolkien Estate. Why? I understand not trusting.
We have a name now for that. It's
yeah,
Simon
I understand not trusting Netflix and thinking,
yeah,
Netflix is probably going to ruin this IP. All you have to do is look at all the memes of when you've got like the book, comic adaptation, something else, and there's the Netflix adaptation. It's like completely diverse with nothing that the original looks like. So I get not trusting Netflix. But if you've got people that are offering you $250 million, and then you have someone who is possibly even a more faceless corporation offering significantly less, I'd like to know what was said in that meeting to convince them. Because this is the thing. At the time, it was still Christopher Tolkien. We've got several articles, and whether or not they're 100% true or not, we've got several articles talking about how Christopher Tolkien and the Tolkien estate were I won't say head over here, were happy with the progress being made. But then we find out that when Christopher Tolkien died, Amazon just did an about face and changed everything. And I think that's when the name of the lady in charge of Amazon Studios escapes me. But I believe that's when
Selke.
Yeah, Selke, or
yeah.
I believe that's when she was hired, because she's the one that came in and canceled the Conan series and decided to do Wheel of Time, which I can't speak to because I've neither read the books nor watched the show. I am very sad though that Rosamund Pike isn't in a good TV show, because I really do like Rosamund Pike. I thought she was
I was
very
really
good
excited to
girl.
see Sunfire, but we're not there yet.
But yeah, so that's one of the very, very many tangents that you will hear over the course of what will hopefully be a very fun time with me and my good friend Dan over here.
Yeah, I think that was a pretty solid intro. I mean, we're just two friends who really have a lot to say about this kind of stuff, and we feel as though we might have a different insight. And if other people want to share that with us, I mean, we encourage them to do so. I mean, I think we've been fans of so many things for so long and have been taught to think critically in so many different aspects. And when people say that entertainment is just designed to turn your brain off, I take offense to that. I mean, candidly, I think it's an insult to humanity and our culture, and in that we have to turn our brains off in order to enjoy something. And I just think it's just nothing but nonsense. And so it'll be nice to actually have a place to share that with others. And I think as long as it'll go on, I think it'll be a fun thing. And I'm really looking forward to doing it with Caleb. At this point, I just want to say Caleb's been a tremendous support with all this. He's been in the background of a lot of things here, and it's the unthanked work, I think, designing everything and getting everything going, and really happy we're finally here. So Caleb, I put some stuff in the private chat that we can talk about, some topics in case we get stuck, and hopefully people understand that this is our first time. So
yeah, no, I really appreciate the thanks. And that's the funny thing, It definitely was. It was a lot more work than I thought it would be. But it was a lot of fun too, kind of figuring out how Illustrator works. I definitely would not say I'm A plus in any manner of the word, because there's a lot of stuff you could do in there that I have no idea about. But just putting all this together was a lot of fun. Our intro little video song type thing that you'll hear was a lot of fun to do. And I think that alone will give a better aspect of all the, let's say, nerdum that we're both very big fans of.
Yes, it's hard to encompass sometimes, but I guess the best way is the banner you designed for the YouTube page.
Yes.
Still simply just fun to look at, I think. I think it's more like a Where's Waldo of
I agree. Yes, it is. I would say the only like nerdum type stuff that isn't in it are stuff from video games. There's some historical stuff in there as well. And I'm just, I'm really excited to get this going. As an attorney, I really shouldn't be saying so much.
Well, I wasn't going to be the one to call you out on it. I mean,
it's like I had a professor in college that would take off points in my speech class every time we said
Wow, that sucks.
It does. It
sucks.
It does, especially for someone that might have once or twice walked up there with like zero preparation and decided he was just gonna pull a speech out of his rear end. And it didn't. It definitely did not always work. But yeah, it was. It was definitely a fun time, and I'm looking forward to really hammering this on. There's another one right there. So I think the best thing to do to start all this off with would be. So we have not watched all of Rings of Power. I have watched the first 2 episodes at this moment on October 20th. By the next time we do this, I definitely plan on finishing it. But I think we're both up to date with House of the Dragon.
Yes,
I'll go to
Dan.
To watch. Yeah, I'll go to Dan in just a second for his thoughts about where we are so far. But I have to say, even with, let's call it the asterisks of how last episode ended, this has been far and away, the best form of entertainment, or not form, sorry, the best entertainment that I've watched in years. I mean, it's very sad that this is the best thing that I have watched since Endgame came out. And even the people that have issues with Endgame, which I can understand, kind of throwing in time travel when everything has kind of been somewhat realistic is definitely kind of a weird way to go about doing it. But you could definitely see why they were doing that. You could see kind of why everything was kind of coming together like that. So I enjoyed Endgame. I thought Infinity War was better, but I did enjoy Endgame. Anything since that has just been on. Well, actually, I'd like to preface that by saying anything since that on its second watch has been terrible. The first time I watched, what was it? WandaVision. The first time I watched WandaVision, I waited a very long time to watch WandaVision, because its commercials just didn't do it for me. I sat there the whole time thinking, are we supposed to be watching I Love Lucy, but with Vision and Wanda? This is very weird. And so I basically waited till the whole thing came out and just watched it at once. I wasn't willing to watch it week by week. And the very first time, with not thinking about it, I kind of thought, okay, well, that was interesting. That was an interesting way of creating the next story because I kind of assumed everything would either stay at that level or get better. I unfortunately was very wrong because it's been kind of like a roller coaster, except for the fact that it never goes back up. It just stays down.
Yeah, I couldn't help but agree with you there on a number of things. Like, I guess that first off, I'll preface this by saying that I agree with you that House of Dragon is the best thing that's been on TV in a very, very long time. I would say since I mean, geez, probably even since back to Game of Thrones, right? In terms of TV, when it was very culturally relevant and interesting to watch. And now I'm going to jump into, I have a very complicated relationship with A Song of Ice and Fire because I've read all the books. I'm caught up. I've seen and watched every single thing, and I couldn't help but feel burned by the end there. And seeing, I have some reservations.
The end of season 8, or
I would say probably from 6 to 8. That's probably where I'm confident. I could convince a lot of people that 5 is actually the worst, or not the worst season, but the beginning of the end. I know a lot of people give it a pass because of Hard Home, and my hot take is that Hard Home is the true peak. And by that, I mean there's no way they were ever going to be able to stop the zombies after they introduced the World War Z zombies in that episode. So did irreversible damage. As cool as it was the purest form of spectacle over substance. Mm-hmm. So that's my take on that. But anyway, hot take it right in the first thing. But I
don't think that is a hot take, Dannon. I think there are a lot of people that kind of see how it was very cool. I mean, seeing those zombies whites. I'll stick to the vernacular for the show. Seeing the whites fall off the cliff at Hardhome was very cool.
Yeah, and slamming into the walls.
Like you said, there was no way you were going to be able to have a good battle for Winterfell with whites, with World War Z whites. You just weren't going to be able to do it.
I thank you for saying it like that, because sometimes I feel like I have to describe them, and maybe I should for the listener. And like the World War Z was the one that introduced World War Zombie. It was a book by Max Brooks, son of Mel Brooks. And
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's a pretty cool little thing. I've read that as well. It's very good. I recommend it highly. So I was very interested in the movie. And the thing about it in the books was that they weren't particularly like speedy zombies. They were more of your traditional kind of slow but dangerous and super strong. Like you don't want to be in close quarters with them. It's more of like surviving them or outthinking them than necessarily physically outrunning them, like in Dawn of the Dead. But in the movie, they went with like the cool CGI. I say cool, I mean nobody's seeing my fingers go up. The cool, like mob kind of. They look like a wave, and they can pull down a helicopter and run over walls and stuff, which is stupid because in the books that one of the safest places in the world is Israel, which built giant walls around the whole country, and then the movie just completely just ignored that. But then when they integrated that into Hard Home, I was really worried. I was like, how are they going to actually be able to hold maybe the wall? But then I just was like, well, they're going to be able to just flood over top. If they're a hive mind, they can just flood over top of the wall. We don't even need to see a dragon destroy it or the horn, which is a whole different theory. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and see, it's funny because when I first saw it, I'm actually a really big fan of World War Z. I really enjoyed it. I didn't read the book, so I think that's probably why I'm a pretty big fan. When I say a big fan, if it's on TV, I'm going to watch it. But I don't really go, oh, hey, let's watch World War Z. Like, I think it came on streaming services. I think it's on Prime or something. And I haven't watched it since I saw it on Prime or whatever it was. But I still really enjoy it. But yeah, no. I hope I spelled this right.
If you read the book, you'd be very disappointed because the Brad Pitt character is essentially supposed to be like a journalist taking accounts of all of these different stories after the fact. So it's like all these people he's talking to have already lived through these this like horrible global phenomenon known as World War Z, and he's talking to people who have like survived in so many different ways. Like he talks to one of the doctors who was kind of there at ground zero in China. I shouldn't say that, in a place in the East. And then there's another character in Japan. He's a blind character. There's a character who's like in America, who's like was on like the Western Front that was able to push back against the zombies eventually. It's a really cool book, and he goes around and just talks to those people. There's like a Navy captain who was on a ship that didn't get infected, and they had to like leave people behind and stuff.
Right.
Like they couldn't.
Well, D&D and Dan, because I don't remember their names. Why don't you say who D&D are?
I think it's David Benioff and Dan Weiss, or David Weiss and Dan Benioff. Either way, they're Dan and Dan, D&D. And I think I've come full circle with my feelings about them. I think that they took it as far as they could take it. I think Germ needs to release the damn book. I appreciate the work he's done. I just think he needs to finish it.
In the spirit of Neurotic, it has been...
Yes, and to honor Nerdrotic, our inspiration for this, we hail to the Fellowship. It has been, 4,117 days?
It has been 4,096 days, or 11 years, 2 months, and 19 days.
Is that from the day the release?
Oh, I apologize. That was the previous thing. It's been 4,114 days. 11 years, 3 months, and 6 days.
Yeah.
Or another way I like looking at it. It's been 2.5 years since we were told we could lock him up if he did not give us the book. Now, before we move on, one of the things I wanted to say is I believe D&D wrote Hard, or I guess they probably didn't write Hard Home, but their idea of Hard Home was done so they could do this right here, so they could have the fight between John and the White to show that Valerian Steel also does it, and so they could have this terrifying moment of the dead kids. I think those are the three main reasons they did Hard Home like they did. And it's the same. I want to say it was Neurotic. I think it was an FNT. I'd love to give credit to whoever said it, but I think I'm going to get it wrong here. So I'm just going to say it was FNT because that kind of covers a lot of people. But I think they're completely right when they said that D&D decided that they wanted to do Game of Thrones so that they could do the Red Wedding, and after that they didn't care anymore, because you can kind of see that.
I think that's fair to say. And
you could definitely see a bunch of care in season 4 because it's the direct results of the Red Wedding, but you really do kind of start to see the writing on the wall, pardon the pun, in season 5 when you and I were talking about this a couple days ago about how they really change a lot of stuff starting in season 5. There's a lot of changes in 2, 3, and 4, but it all kind of stays with the correct spirit.
The themes,
it's kind of like how Peter Jackson, there were a lot of changes that Peter Jackson made in the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah, I'm going to do a whole video on that.
Yes, definitely. But it stayed to the true story of Lord of the Rings. But starting in season 5, they kept Tyrion as a good guy. You can see the writing on the wall with him going bad. They kept, and of course in 8, when everyone or 7 and 8, where everyone's that has been a genius and basically has been able to see into the future, just decides to stop being smart.
Who, Tyrion?
Well, Tyrion, Peter Baelish, and Varys.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
They didn't know how to write for them because they didn't understand them. Like, and I'm not even trying to be nasty. Like, they're George's characters. Like, he's the one who has the plan for them, right? I mean, like,
well, that's funny.
I'm sorry. Does that make sense? I'm sorry.
Yeah, 100%.
Pause for dramatic effect there.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm on a reread. I finished A Storm of Swords about a week ago, or Tuesday, I believe, actually. And what I was going to do is I was going to watch the corresponding seasons. So I finished a Game of Thrones. I watched the first season of Game of Thrones. Then I finished Clash of Kings and watched the second season. I finished the third one. And I realized as I was finishing it, oh, wait, this is actually seasons 3 and 4. And I was like, I went to start season 3 and I've got so much to watch before I'm ready for the next book. I almost just want to go with the book. I almost don't even want to watch the show because I know where it's going to end. And it's going to end with me angry again.
I was surprised you wanted to do it again. Honestly, I'm like, I don't.
Well, I'll tell you why I decided to do it again. Because a professor you and I shared, spent a lot of time during class with me defending the ending for Game of Thrones. Or not necessarily defending it, but kind of combating the vitriol with which I talked about how they ended it. So
I remember we were taking our first year law school exams. At the end, it was exams of spring semester, and I won't say the year. Well, I guess I just did. Oh well. We were taking our exams at that time, and I was stressed out. I was like, "Oh man, I want to talk about Game of Thrones, but got to study for our exams," and they were hard. We had some hard teachers back then, hard professors. But yeah, I mean, like, so should we talk about some positives about the House of Dragon? I mean, it's a very good show.
Yeah.
Without getting too, I mean, we should probably have specific streams. I mean, again, we can talk a lot about just Game of Thrones. Like,
yes.
The audience might now know that we really have a plethora of knowledge there. And the same can be said in certain ways for the Lord of the Rings, the Tolkien Legendarium.
Mm-hmm.
It's less debatable, I think. I think there's some fun parts you could debate, but I think there's usually more of a consensus about a lot of the qualities of it and a lot of the really, really beautiful parts of it, so for lack of better words. I mean, it's a story very close to me. I had it growing up, and it was very moving to me, and I actually picked it back up again when I became an adult, and I was like, let me try this again. And I listened to the Robert Ingalls version on Audible, and it just completely blew me away because as a child I had kind of struggled with the names and the songs and stuff like that.
Yes.
And I kind of wasn't fully aware of like what some of these things might be in this old telling of, it's written by J.R.R. Tolkien, who's, lived a vastly different life than most people, writing about history that's not there. So you don't understand his day-to-day terms that you would use casually as an American child, I wish I had the book in front of me. I should have brought some, but there's just vocab that people can struggle with, even if they're trying, and you can skip past it, and you can also almost skip past entire parts and not even realize it. But the way that performance was in the Robert Ingalls production really kind of inspired me to really dive in. I mean, just completely and utterly when I was like a young adult, probably when I was like 20 or 21, I just really dove right into the lore. And I was just getting into Game of Thrones at the time too. And I just dove right into that as well. All the different houses and the histories just completely captured my imagination. And with that, I really could just speak endlessly about both of them. They're really, really good things. But I also follow a lot of other things too. I follow some more positive things, such as like I love Bob's Burgers, as casually as that sounds. I love American Dad. Those are very funny shows. I really enjoy. It's Always Sunny is one of my favorite shows. I often tell people that if I had a show that I could forget right? Like if I didn't have any memory of it and I could watch it all again for the first time and go through it all again, it would be It's Always Sunny. It's definitely my favorite show. I jotted some stuff down just while you were talking about positives earlier since House of the Dragon. And this is going to be a perfect segue back into House of the Dragon, because I was saying that some of the things that have been out that have been good since House of the Dragon, not TV wise. I thought Maverick was really good, as maybe as corny or as mainstream as that sounds. I thought it was actually really fun to go see this summer.
I actually haven't seen it yet.
Oh, you haven't seen it? It's very good, man.
No,
I totally recommend
keep
it.
meaning to, but stuff just gets in my way.
Yeah, man. I mean, like, well, now we have a good excuse to let this stuff get in the way of other stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, Maverick was great, and I really just enjoyed that. We could talk a little bit more about that later. And really, the thing that kind of got me back into all of this, not all of this, but the first movie I had seen since Endgame was Dune. And I had really enjoyed that movie. I thought that was a fun movie. I wish they hadn't ended it where they ended it, but that's me getting ahead of myself. It was stunning and everything was fun, and I just really had a good time getting sucked away into that universe. So, but yeah, and like I said, that's all I've seen that's been good since House of the Dragon. So, Caleb, why don't you tell me your thoughts about the first half of the season and the latter half that we've experienced, and then where you think we're going to go for the last season, the last episode here?
Yeah, so I'm kind of a unique case. I haven't read Fire and Blood. I keep wanting to. I've got it on my Audible, but it's too much of a question mark for me, so I kind of keep pushing it down the road. But I've got to say, I was one of the guys that said, I'm not watching it. Absolutely not. Someone asked me, hey, you're going to watch it? I said, absolutely not. Have you heard what these writers are saying? Have you heard what the actors and actresses are saying? Absolutely not. I'm not watching this. It's going to be garbage. And I think I made it to the next Saturday. I'm not even sure I kept at it for a week. I watched a buddy of mine who I kind of trust said, I think you should watch it. And I said, you know what? Fine. I'll watch it. And I watched the first episode and I thought, wow, this isn't quite what I thought it was going to be. It felt a little woke, but the thing about wokeness, in my opinion at least, is if it works for the story and if it pushes the story, it's okay. And in this case, a great example of that is, I really want to say it's episode 2, where Rhaenyra and Rhaenys are having those conversations. And I know it happens in episode 4, but Rhaenyra and Rhaenys are having these conversations. And Rhaenyra is just like, I don't want to just push out babies. I want to do with my life what I want to do. So actually, I think this is the example from the 4th episode when she's talking to Daemon Targaryen, when she's talking to her uncle, and she says, I want to live my life like I want to live it. And he says, you're a princess. Do you know how many people would kill to be in your position? So you've got this kind of woke dialogue coming from a female character, which kind of feels like, are we doing this again? But then you've got an equally better actor, because Matt Smith, is a fantastic actor.
Yeah.
And you've got him really take control of this conversation to be like, you are living such a privileged life to be able to sit there and be like, I want to live my life like how I want to live it. No one lives their life like they want to live it. So first off, why do you think you should be able to do that? And then you get to have a life that there are probably 8 people on this continent that have a better life than you.
Yeah, I could even compare.
Yeah,
hey, what kind of life do you have?
That's one of the things that I think has been a very, very big strength for this show. it has these moments that if you really want to nitpick, you could sit there and be like, no. But if you just let it be part of the story, it works beautifully. And so I miss Emily Alcock. I think she was an incredible Rhaenyra. I genuinely want to see her in more stuff. I hope the next Westeros show they go, she was great. We're going to rehire her, because while that would really bug me, I would also get to see her again as a Targaryen, because I think she does an amazing job at it. And one of the few people whose wigs I actually thought was pretty good.
The wigs have left some stuff to be desired.
Yes, definitely.
I guess that's a different conversation, I think. And that's go ahead. I was going to let you finish where you thought I was going.
You've got these 5. Was it 5 episodes and then the actors change?
I think it was 5. I think it was the 6th episode. Yeah. Was the big.
So you have these first 5 episodes that are very good. You've got a couple scenes that are kind of like, ugh, like the brothel scene with Daemon and Rhaenyra. That's really not a good scene, especially when you consider what it's really about. Yeah. And then you've got the actress change. And I remember thinking, okay, I don't think it's going to be as good, because we really like these characters. And I kind of was curious as to whether or not does the show, do you allow for a dip, or do you hold it to an even higher standard? And I have to say, I think that 6th episode actually first off, it did a much better job than I thought it would do. But I actually think there were scenes in that episode that grabbed me more than most of the previous 5 episodes. I remember sitting there thinking, when I first heard some of the stuff that the new Rhaenyra actress was saying, thinking, oh, this is going to be terrible. And you really don't get that in the show. And I think that's one of the great examples of having competent writers and competent directors. I was telling Dan this earlier. If you've got a competent writer or a competent director, they can fix almost all the sins of an incompetent other. But if you have an incompetent director and an incompetent writer, it's very difficult to get out of that without messing up. And I think we saw that in the last episode. But I do have to say that I love this. I've just lost my train of thought.
Well, you were talking about the positives and why it's been too good so far to be so quick to dismiss.
Yes,
I think you're right.
I would genuinely say that this show has been a solid 7.5 to 8. And then you have this last episode, which really brought it down to a 7 for me.
Yeah, I'm worried the last one isn't. I'll get my thoughts soon.
Yeah, as a non-book reader, there are definitely, with some knowledge of things that happen, we will do our best never to spoil anything. And the good thing is, because we record this stuff and then post it, unless we're doing a live stream, we'll be able to take out any spoilers. But saying that, there are some things that happen over the course of the next 3 years. So Dance of the Dragons, which is the first Targaryen Civil War, takes place over 3 years. And we're right at the start right now. So there are a couple of things that happen over the course of the next 3 years that I think they took kind of a lazy way of setting up. And one of them is the crashing through the floor of the dragon pit. I think they are lazily trying to set up a certain event. For people that have absolutely no idea of the book, I don't think it'll be a problem. And even for me, who has, let's say, 50% of the book knowledge, I'm kind of okay with it. But for people like Dan, people like Gary and Neurotic, Quarter Black, Jane Theory, they have problems with it, and they should. They read the book. They kind of enjoyed the book, and so when you just change something that is kind of set in stone, even though this is kind of a weird one because of how Fire and Blood was written, it annoys people, and honestly, it should. But hey, Dan, I just realized our colors are Lannister colors.
Oh well, hail Lannisters. No, they're that's because the Lannisters are the Roman Empire colors, and that's what we were not mirroring, but they just happened to come to us, and we thought they came out pretty good. So, yeah, definitely like it there, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, with that, you kind of opened it up. Like, I guess I feel particularly. I don't want to say obsessive, but I feel like I put a lot into understanding it and sharing it and spreading it. And not that I'm owed anything. That's not what I mean at all. I just mean that like I can be a little bit more critical of it because I think a lot of people on the internet would just quick to dismiss me by saying like, oh, you have your own headcanon. Oh, you have your own headcanon. And it's like, oh, that's fair to say. But like when George writes and then Sunfire flew over the thing, you kind of want to be, you're like, oh, okay, I kind of want to see Sunfire. Like
Sunfire is Aegon's dragon.
Yes,
anyone
Aegon the
didn't know.
Second's dragon. Aegon the Elder's dragon.
Yes, the one that was just crowned king.
Yes. And it was a big deal in the story about the coronation. I won't get too far into the details there because, it could be some setup.
That'll be another
some.
stream.
Yeah. I would like to dive right into Game of Thrones one night and just really just rip it up and start talking about some theories and stuff like that. That'd be really fun to me.
I can't wait for that.
Oh yeah, I'd love to have a theory night. Like I love those. Just talking about all the stuff that goes on. And yeah, just hold on, okay, let me step away for a second. Sorry, we were just checking it out. Oh, no problem.
So while he deals with that real quick,
all settled here. Sorry, everybody. Just had somebody walking in, but still good to go. But like I said, it's just something that I feel it's special to me, and I like the fantasy of it all, and it feels like I just certain things you just kind of want to see. And
I agree. So I actually have two examples of that, and then I think we should move on from Game of Thrones. Well, Westeros. So, having those kind of things that you kind of build up in your head from books. One of them is from Harry Potter in Deathly Hallows, which I remember I read in about a day and a half when it first came out. I was very excited to see the battle between Harry and Voldemort. Oh, I said his name. Because I wanted to see that kind of monologue that Harry has, where he does the whole, did you know, Tom? How you dare call me? Yes, I dare call you. I wanted to see that, especially because I think both castings were so great for that moment. And not getting it, I was really kind of like, I mean, we broke this up into two movies and I can't get the monologue. And then the other is, and this is one of the changes that Peter Jackson made that while I was completely okay with what I didn't know existed. And then when I finally read the books, because I decided to read them when I was probably 13 or 14, and I couldn't get past Tom Bombadil. So I waited years, and I finally read them about 4 or 5 years ago. And I really wish the sword scene in where he meets the Rohirrim was in the movie, because I would have loved to see you kind of get little glimpses of what it could look like when Gandalf returns and you see the whiteness on Legolas's face. It kind of mirrors the wording in the book when it says Legolas saw in Aragorn for a moment the powerfulness of the kings of old. And I just wish we could see that on screen done by Peter Jackson, because I think it would be fantastic.
Do you mean which scene are you specifically meaning? Do you mean the one where they're on the river and they're sailing past the Argonauts, or do you mean the one where
No? So
Gandalf is revealed?
What I was talking about is in Two Towers, in the proper book. Obviously, Aragorn has Anduril, and when he meets
when they meet up with Éomer. I thought you said Gandalf
when they meet up with Éomer.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, Éomer does this whole, who are you?
Yes.
Gimli does the thing, and then Aragorn has this kind of, I won't really call it a monologue, but he has like a page of dialogue. And then he says, I'm not weaponless. And he pulls out Anduril, tells him who it is, and tells him who he is. And Tolkien writes this scene. I've got goosebumps talking about this.
I know.
Tolkien writes this scene that's just like pure magic. And I would have loved to see Peter Jackson put that on film.
I know.
But that's what's really funny. That's my only complaint about Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I don't have any. I think one of the things I could say that I would love to see, like if there's ever a redone version and like an anime version, which I think is the only way to properly do it because of the time.
The Scourging of the Shire.
No, actually, I mean, like, yeah, that'd be nice because it's actually, to me, I consider that the climax because that's where, like, if Frodo and Merry and Pippin and Sam hadn't gone on their journeys and hadn't been brave and hadn't kept going, and if they wouldn't have had the skills and the actual experience to win the fight at home and rally and for ultimately save and better the Shire. I mean, even though it hurt and you had to rip the Band-Aid off, what ultimately is to come is better than before. And that's, the mystery of the shadow that we have to just see through, I think, in my opinion, for Tolkien. And I think that is something that would be cool to see. I think it as much as it would suck to see on screen. But what I really mean is actually the first book one of the 6 books of the Lord of the Rings is it's really mostly all about the conspiracy between Frodo and the other hobbits to escape the Shire. And Frodo thinks he's going to go on his own, only to be revealed that everybody knows what he's doing and they're all in support of it and they're all going to help him. And it's a really beautiful scene because it's a lot more serious of how to get out of a city like that, how to get out of being in people's minds and being in their Bagginses are popular folk. So for him to just up and leave, and I think the name of the place in the book is he sells Bag End and goes to a little known fact, people don't know that he sells Bag End. Yep. And he moves to Crick Hollow and he has a house there, and Sam comes and lives with him because he's going to escape. And originally it's only supposed to be Sam and it's originally only supposed to be Frodo, and he's going to leave, but then Sam knows, and he's going to go with him, and he organizes Merry and Pippin and Fatty Bolger to help out. So I'd always thought that would have been nice to see as like kind of a more like really stretching your legs in the Shire and trying to get out of there and planning it right and waiting a few months to do it and moving. And I don't know, it's just something I really enjoyed in the books when I was a kid. I was like, oh, you really feel like you're in the Shire, and then when you encounter the ring wraiths, and you're there, and you're in Bree, and you meet Strider, you're like, oh man, we're not, for lack of a better phrase, we're not in Kansas anymore, we're not in the Shire anymore. Like this is scary, especially with the Barrow Rights, like you were saying earlier about the Tom Bombadil scene, and they've got the sword on their neck as they sleep, and that's one of the moments I was referring to earlier, where Frodo has this option to run away and leave his friends to die. And that's the kind of the temptation in all of us to do the easy thing and the selfish thing, and that's not Tolkien's meshes though, because had Frodo done that, he likely would have died. He would not have had the strength to call out for Tom Bombadil because he wanted to save his friends. So he turned around and turned to save his friends and called for help with Tom Bombadil, and then he was able to save the day. And it's just a really, again, you have to pursue, you have to continue on in the fight sometimes, and you're not always going to have the answers, but you just got to feel like you know what you're doing. So
Yeah.
that's
Real
all.
quick, I want to, because you and I are lawyers, I want to bring up the case against Kevin Spacey. I don't really have an opinion on this. I never really got into the story because I was dealing with so much at the time, and there were so many other stories that were coming out. But for anyone that doesn't know, earlier today, Kevin Spacey, his civil trial in New York, which came out of the very first allegations. There are several other allegations against him, but the very first ones that came from actor Anthony Rapp, saying that he abused him when he was a minor. I forget how long ago this was, but obviously it must have been long ago enough that we were past the statute of limitations. So the civil jury today ruled that Anthony Rapp was not abused by Kevin Spacey. Now, Kevin Spacey still faces several charges in London, but he is, as the jury has decided, innocent. So that's one of the things, Dan. You know, we've got a civil trial here in the United States where the jury has not said he's innocent, because that's not the correct term when it comes to a civil trial. They have said that there is, what's the correct word, Dan?
Well, there's a lower. Now, I can't speak entirely to New York law, which is where you said the state took place in. And for those who don't know, there's different state laws, and you want to be proficient in the area where you practice, and that's usually in one area, and you can be proficient in many areas. New York is a difficult place to practice, so the laws could be complex and nuanced there. So I wouldn't know precisely the actual civil procedure behind the actions, but in essence, you have a lower standard of it's my understanding that you have a lower threshold to meet, and the criminal side would have an even higher threshold. So it bodes well for in my initial understanding of this. I have been working all day, and this is the end of the day, and this news has come out of. I was reminiscing about Tolkien, and you're like, "Oh, it's Kevin Spacey gets off."
Great change of subject there, right?
Yeah, it was perfect. Just way to really keep things fresh, and so his threshold was basically. He's beaten the harder one to beat. If you're in his shoes, you would expect to lose the civil one because it's a lower threshold, whereas like a criminal one would be higher because it's beyond a reasonable doubt instead of is it preponderance of the evidence?
Yes. In civil court, there's the preponderance of the evidence, which basically means it's more likely than not. Hence the reason why OJ, while he was found innocent in a criminal court, was found liable, which is the word I was looking for, was found liable for the murder of Ann Nicole Smith, because
which I think technically civilly it's a wrongful death suit. So
it was the preponderance of the evidence said it was more likely that he killed her than that he didn't kill her. So that's one of the differences between that. Well, that's the difference between civil and criminal. That it's for money. It's not for. This case in New York was for $40 million, which is a lot of money for pain and suffering. $40 million. I thought. I was gonna say. I thought there was a cap in New York, but that's when it's against the state. But yeah, no, this is very big because you can see in the history of cases like this, you know, once you get by one of them, the dominoes kind of start to fall. Now, I haven't looked at the evidence. I don't know what it says. I don't know what Mr. Rapp says. I don't know what Kevin Spacey says, but I thought this was a very interesting story, and as we are both lawyers, I thought it would be an interesting thing to comment on.
Yeah, I definitely
Now,
think it's
back to
fun.
comic
It's
books.
interesting to speak to. I think just to cap it. I think I think we'll see that now that the Spacey defense has struck gold.
Mhm.
When in doubt, just come out, right? So, which
Yeah, well,
you
that's the
remember
thing.
he famously
He
did
said,
like the day after the allegation.
right. He said in a statement earlier today, he said that it was his publicists that told him to apologize. And he said the lesson he learned from all this is even when you know you didn't do anything, don't apologize. And as a lawyer, I can tell you that is very good advice. Now,
Yeah,
this itself is not legal advice. We are not giving legal advice here.
No,
But
absolutely
one
not.
thing I
No
will
sense
say
in
is
assisting
don't
any of this.
apologize.
And don't talk to
Apologizing.
cops either.
Yes. Do not talk to the police.
Don't talk to him. But moving on, I have on to the next
Yes,
topic.
back to comics.
Comics. I think it's a good segue into there to Marvel. And I'm glad that's
I'm just
funny.
thinking about what the She-Hulk writer said the other
I
day.
agree. I think that was a perfect segue into we're talking about the law, and how could we not talk about the absolute banging hit that is She-Hulk Attorney at Law?
Oh, it is the greatest example of lawyering on television since nothing. There's nothing better.
I'd say, maybe, I don't even know.
Matlock. It's better than Matlock.
Yeah, Matlock. All the Law and Orders every year.
And if you can't tell, we're kidding.
Yes, we are.
Because
very, very much.
I don't know if
awful.
Ben has started watching it, but I'm through 6 episodes. And I will be very honest. There were a couple of times during law school that there would be a question, there would be a multiple choice question. And I would think to myself, now it can't be B because that's not how they did it on Law and Order. Was not and is not a very good way of thinking about it. But I can tell you right now, if the answer ever comes up and that's how they did it on She-Hulk, the answer's wrong.
The answer
Because
wrong.
there is not. I honestly think the only correct part about the court scenes in She-Hulk is they call the judge Your Honor. I think that's the only correct part.
Yeah, they got the suits down. They know that you're supposed to wear nice clothes to court.
Well, nice. Have you seen what she wears?
You know what I mean?
But no, all right. So I'm through 6 episodes. I've laughed 3 times. And I'll be honest, one of them was actually kind of funny. So there's a suit against a magician. And I know I'm laughing about this already because it really was kind of funny. But one of the things that I really enjoy laughing at is when there's like very small little lines that just kind of feel like someone just ad-libbed it and it works. A great example of this is when in the movie Talladega Nights, before the French Sacha Baron Cohen, before he shows up, you've got a conversation between 2 of the crew pit guys, the guy from 30 Rock and then someone else. I don't remember what he's from. And so the guy from 30 Rock says, I don't know what to get my Nana for her birthday. She's going to be 97. And immediately the next guy goes, buy her a coffin. And the first time I saw that, I had to pause the movie. I was laughing so hard. So this is one of those examples of a small little comment that actually works very well. And it's one of the only good things in She-Hulk. Well, they're suing a magician for something to do with Wong, who's played by Benedict Wong. I don't really remember why they're suing him, but so the magician that's being sued starts doing magic tricks. And then someone else who I thought was the attorney, but might have been like a publicist, started doing a magic trick. And so it's all this like really lame card. It's lame for them because card tricks are actually kind of cool sometimes. But it's all these really lame tricks. And then the lawyer, who he's a very big guy. He actually kind of looks like the dad from the old Munsters show. So the grandfather, not the dad. So he starts doing these really bad magic trick shows, and you see it. The camera pans to She-Hulk, who kind of leans sideways or leans back to see what they're doing, and she just kind of whispers, "Even the lawyer's a dang magician." And I just thought that was so funny. And by funny, I mean it took me out of the terribleness of the show and kind of felt like something that would actually happen in real life. So in that one instance, I laughed. I've laughed 2 other times. The problem is I can't remember what the other 2 times were. That's how empty and boring this show has been.
Yeah,
now,
I gave up after Loki, so I haven't been able to get back into Disney Plus
and
at
see,
all.
that's the thing. The thing they did with Loki is the same thing that they did with Rings of Power. With Rings of Power, they expected that every time they said something like the trees or the great light or any of these other little throwaway phrases to non-Tolkien fans, that we as Tolkien fans would be excited because, you're talking about the 2 great lamps. Oh, you're talking about the trees, the War of the Trees.
Oh my gosh,
and
how scary would Ungoliant have been?
Yeah, they're throwing out this terrible fan service, hoping that that's going to keep us excited. And that's what they were doing in Loki. Every single time you went to a new, was it Planes universe? Every time you went to a new universe in the multiverse, you would see these little things from the comics. Like the finale where you saw Thanos' copter. You saw I think some of the Lokis were fan service. There were a couple other things that you saw in the background that was just fan service, and they think that fan service will get us to keep watching. And it ended with Loki. Their ability to get us to watch using fan service, I think, ended with Loki. Because the stuff from Moon Knight that I think people are aware of actually isn't from Moon Knight, as I understand it. There are several memes that use Moon Knight comic book panels, but all of the words on the page aren't actually from the comic. They're just made up stuff. So the memes alone aren't going to get you through a TV show.
Yeah.
As bad as Rings of Power is.
Yeah, dude, I couldn't agree more with you. I think it's a real shame about where the Marvel universe has come from and where it's gone. I mean, without getting into too big of specifics now, because of it's for time, and we could do a whole different video about.
That's a video by itself.
Yeah, I mean they're all episodes of themselves, and I would be more than happy to stick to those one day. But I think as a whole, I think just as an introduction of ourselves, I think it's a shame about where it came from. I mean, I was there when they first came out. I went with all my friends to go see the first Avengers. I remember seeing Tony Stark appear at the end of that Edward Norton Hulk movie, and I credit that movie with actually starting the MCU, even though everyone shits on it.
Well, it's funny.
I like that
I think
movie.
She-Hulk's going to do for Edward Norton Hulk what Rings of Power has done for The Hobbit and what the Disney trilogy did for the prequel trilogy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, for now, right now, Thor 2 looks good. I like Christopher Eccleston.
See, that's funny. I always liked Thor 2.
Yeah,
I'm a
it
big
was just
Thor fan.
You would just realize you were like, oh, they're all not good. They're all not like the best movies you like that are great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and that's the thing for me, and I think Chris Gore was talking about this on yesterday's Nooner, but for me, I can kind of turn myself off to watch certain movies. If for instance, I went and saw the second Down Abbey movie. It wasn't good. It wasn't anything like the show because the show was fantastic. The first movie was okay. Yeah, no, okay, this is a movie version. But then the second one was just kind of like, can we get a redo, please? And I walked out of that going, if y'all want to do any more of this, you're gonna have to do a TV show again. You can't keep doing movies because they're just not as good.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, and I think it's hard to argue against the fact that it's the quality that's been going down, unfortunately, and with that, it's very plain to see that there's something going on that we are not going to be privy to unless it comes out in the book 25 years from now. And that's we don't understand why they're like strangling the cash cow. Like, why not just space this out? Why not just really, really look at the stuff and take your time with it and try and keep this going? Because you can tell that these giant infrastructures, these giant IPs are not foolproof. I mean, Game of Thrones is earning back a lot of the favor that it earned a long time ago, but it lost its credibility for a reason. I mean, there's a reason why people don't want to watch the show, because ultimately it's a prequel to a show that ends like very poorly. And that's all I'll say for that, because season 8 will have a whole episode on. That's
we just kind of want to forget about that.
Yeah. And Rings of Power now has put a crack in the Lord of the Rings IP armor. I mean, yeah, the Hobbit wasn't very good, but
was respectful. As invulnerable as anything.
Okay, respectful is a hard word because it wasn't respectful. I did not like so many things about The Hobbit. I think there was a lot of studio interference. I'd love to see a pure Jackson cut one day. That would be nice to see, I think. And I think that's that. I do have a section here I did want to talk about, and those are some of our favorite movies, some classics to us. Now that we've kind of just discussed our feelings about some major topics here, I think you can probably understand where we sit. But Caleb, what are some of your favorite movies? What are your top 5 favorite movies?
Actually, you know what? If you give me just a second to pull up the notes, the sticky notes on my laptop. I've done this before. A buddy of mine is really big into movies, and he asked us all at his wedding or his wedding weekend what our favorite movies were. And so I had this. I sure hope it's still on my sticky notes on here. But I definitely don't know if I could do in order. So what I have written down here is at number 1, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. If you have to make me pick a Lord of the Rings movie, I think it would be Return of the King.
Yeah, the extended edition Return of the King is
definitely. It's the first. It's the first extended edition I saw.
Me too.
I still have the VHS tape.
See, I got DVDs when I was a kid.
Yeah. I was a little poorer than you, I guess.
Well, they were a gift from my brother. Give me that. No, I got them. My dog chewed up the second disc, which really hurt my feelings as a kid. I was like, no.
Yeah.
And then so I bought them for my fiance. She's a big Tolkien nerd. I bought them for her for when she graduated college.
Excellent.
She graduated a little bit after me, and so I got them for her then. And she was very surprised. We had a great time watching all of them.
My second one is a movie I think every man should see. It's called The Great Escape.
Oh, I love The Great Escape.
It's a fantastic movie.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's got the king of cool, Steve McQueen, in it.
Cooler 20 Days.
And then my third one, Miracle, the shockingly Disney movie about the 1980 U.S. Olympic hockey team that defeated the great Soviet Union hockey team, and then went on, because a lot of people forget that they beat them in the semis and then had to go beat Finland to win the gold medal. So I watch it every year with my dad around Christmas, and it's just a fantastic movie. And one of the great parts about it, the thing that really I think sells the movie, is it opens with this prologue that just kind of has 3 or 4 second headlines about stuff that happened basically from like 1955 through 1979. So you hear all these little things that just really kind of, as an American, tear you down until you get to this thing where people were finally proud to be an American again. And it's a fantastic movie, and I think anyone should go and watch it. The next is another sports movie, baseball movie, For Love of the Game, and also kind of a romance movie, but I see it more as a sports movie. And then number 5, the movie that I wish had not released the year it did, because it lost Best Movie to, and basically every other Oscar, to Peter Jackson's Return of the King, Master Commander of the Far Side of the World. That is the movie that I decided Russell Crowe is one of the greatest actors of all time. That I saw that before I saw Gladiator. And for me, Russell Crowe and Paul Bettany as Aubrey and Martin was incredible. And I wish they would do more, but they won't. What are your 5 favorite movies, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. So to start things off, I concur with you. Top of all time for me, it's Lord of the Rings trilogy. I think if I had to, at absolute gunpoint, pick only one movie, extended edition, to bring to an island, I think I would probably bring The Fellowship, because I really enjoy the lore in that movie. I enjoy the prologue. I enjoy the Shire. And I think that would help you survive an island, is the Shire. And I definitely, and I definitely love Moria. It's probably one of my favorite scenes in all of cinema. The whole
beautiful
the entrance
music
to the fight. Oh, and the music is so beautiful to the oh my gosh, the stair scene, which is an homage to the level changing in the books. There's a lot more levels of the city in the books, and there's a flight to down many passages, and the stairs I think is a good Jacksonian homage to the way that is portrayed. My second favorite movie, I think, is The Godfather, an Italian American, third generation, so it's not something you don't see. You just watch it all the time. Kind of out there. I mean, I have some similar ones as you. I mean, I love The Great Escape, but I love Kill Bill also, which I know you said you hadn't actually ever finished. Not to call you out, I didn't mean to do that. I just meant it's interesting to me because I feel like it's right up your alley. I love Braveheart. That'd be one of my all-time favorite war movies. A drama and just super captivating from start to finish. I'd spend a whole stream, maybe a whole evening discussing that movie start to finish. And my favorite kind of feel-good kickback movie. I'm a big John Carpenter fan, and I love Big Trouble in Little China. I think that's one of the coolest, funniest, easiest movies to get along with ever. I think if you're not getting along with a movie, you just need to relax, kick back, and just have fun with the characters. Just feel like you're there with them. I know a lot of people think that it's just like a schlocky 80s movie with goofy plot, but there's a lot more magic to that movie, no pun intended, than what meets the eye. So
Was that just 4?
I said Lord of the Rings. I said Godfather, Kill Bill, Braveheart, and Big Trouble.
Okay.
I
yes,
also
okay.
I also love westerns too. I like Good, Bad, and the Ugly. That's one of my favorite movies of all time.
It is, yes.
I used to have the luxury of when I was in college, I worked at movie theaters, so I would see all the movies when they came out.
My brother did that.
Yeah,
I have seen many a movie for free thanks to my brother.
yes, I've seen a lot of movies, and I used to get all the big posters and bring them back to my fraternity
My
house.
brother did that too.
Yeah.
But look, we've got to go.
It's very fun.
It has. This has been really fun.
It's been organic. I think we've had a lot of good times.
Yeah, we've been trying to find times that both of us were free to be able to do this for a little while now. And I think, if you choose to listen, we would greatly appreciate that. I don't know about Dan, but if you hop on our channel, likes, subscribe, and all that, but you'll see that I've got some video game streams on there. I plan on continuing that kind of stuff. Right now, I'm playing Civilization 6 and some Factorio. Both have been really fun getting back into. Hopefully, I plan on adding some other stuff to that as well, some FPSs. But this is really going to be kind of a conversation channel between Dan and myself about just. Honestly, though, to be fair, everything. We're going to talk.
Yeah,
about
I think that's a fair way to say it. I mean, Caleb and I are friends. We've gone through a lot together, and we find that our conversations are very stimulating. We really enjoy them. We have what I think to be some solid talking points to make, for lack of a better word. But yeah, no, I agree with Caleb. If you feel so inclined to. So like and subscribe. It sounds weird to say, but it does. Nice to finally say it. Like and subscribe. Really
and check us out on
Twitter. We might be on the gram eventually. I'm not sure. It depends on how things proceed, but we appreciate your time. Thank you all.
And hit that bell.
And hit that bell for the notifications. Thank you all, and have a good night.
Thank you.